Okay, good day, everybody, and welcome once again to Data Story Lab um, 10.0. I mean, I wish that um, this is, I wish I had should I say, an appreciation, kind of cheers or appreciation. I think that's what I'll plead next. One of the reasons I'm saying this is because over several months we have been able to do this and have a lot of participants joining through several programs. So thank you once again for doing that and being part of this. So for some of those we've been able to do physical programs. We've been able to train a lot of journalists on several issues, climate and gender, one of it, AI, budget, accountability, and even as we even run this series over several months, we've seen interested persons meet us either physically or online and always engage with us. So thank you for keeping that engagement. And I mean, some days ago, I just got a feedback from a colleague who said, "Oh, I joined one of your trainings." And she works um, in, I think, a newspaper. And she said, "Oh, I joined one of your training and it has just helped reshaping how I always tell stories. So thank you for always hosting this series." And it's just a true testament to some of the work that we have built over the last 10 months or 11 months. And thank you for being part of this. So, not to bore you with a lot of appreciation, right? So, just like you have it today, we're going to be treating something different. I like to say maybe because we in the 16 days of activism, right? It is always essential that we, as journalists, as researchers, as policymakers, try to take up conversations that speak to gender and seeing how we understand perspectives, seeing how we understand reporting, such that it can always inform how we drive policies, how we uh, 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 create an engagement and the like. So this is just one of those phases where we can interact, share knowledge, and I think this is like one of the first time where in the training I'm going to have two women speaking directly to me. So um, I was almost on a lighter mood. I was almost saying I should not anchor today. I probably should give it to a female colleague so that we just have women all through talking about gender. I mean, and that's not to say gender is just women specific, but today we want to be able to understand some of the underreported issues and data that flows around this and seeing if that can help us inform how, like I said, how we tell our stories, how we address policies, how we engage stakeholders, and such that at the long run, right, it helps build, I mean, what we would dream to become a better civic space or a better country, as you may. So I have two people joining me today. They are already on the call. We have Khadija Kerin, our head of policy, research and communications, and we also have Simbiat Bakari, founding director, sorry, of Niger Feminist Media, and they are going to be sharing a lot from their expertise. And like we always say, one of the things that we like for this in this training is the conversation. So beyond the expertise they share is also how you can also contribute to it, right? Um, have you reported gender in one phase of your career? Have you researched with it? Are there challenges you encounter when you do this? Can you also share that from that so that we can all learn together, right? So I'm going to be leaving the floor open to them. And but before I do that, I always want you to know that our YouTube channel is always available for um, every of the videos. A lot of us don't follow us, right? So please go and follow us on YouTube. So I'm just going to drop the link in the chat so that everybody can see that, right? Every of these videos are always uploaded on YouTube. It's free. I mean, for now it is free. It can be we can monetize it tomorrow and you will have to pay for it. But that's on the lighter note. For now, it's free. Please always go back to like, share, and repost. I mean, follow us online, and that does help us expand the space. So, without being taking too much time, um, we will have Khadija Kerim come up first to discuss some of the works that we have done in data fights, especially within the gender space, right? Then we'll have Symbiat come to give us a robust idea on how you can report or address gender-related issue, right? Then at the end of it, I also promise that we've done like a cleaning of the 2025 budget related to gender issues, right? Specifically, even women-related projects. I mean, and if you need access to that sheet, we are open to sharing it with you. And yes, so with that being said, Hadidat Kerim, if you're on the call, please unmute yourself. Let me know that you can unmute yourself. And let's just get right into it.
Hello everyone. Good morning.
Good
Can everyone hear me?
morning. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I hope we're all doing okay. Good morning. Thanks for joining in. So I'm just going to take us through quickly on data fight work on gender and some of our knowledge output that we have on gender that you can use as some form of reference or inspiration or draw from for ideas when it comes to gender reporting in and analysis in Nigeria. So at DataFight, one of the things that we like to think of before doing anything that relates to gender is that as a Nigerian, we think of ourselves first as as Nigerians. That as a Nigerian, we all need to like invest in a future where gender cannot dictate access to education, economic opportunities, employment opportunities, and so on. So most of our output are targeted towards policymakers, advocates, and development organizations that are also related to gender. And we also take into consideration SDG 5 and SDG 8. SDG 5, which is related to gender equality, and 8, which relates to decent work and economic growth. So I think everybody agrees with me that when it comes to gender issues, Nigeria, a lot of issues come up here and there. And I think one of the most recent example that we've seen recently is that of Natasha Akpoti um, Uduagan, the issue of sexual harassment allegations that she has with the Senate president. So, in light of all this, sometimes you have to do your storytelling maybe in form of information, because some people form oblivion to some of these things, some of the gender issues, and I think one of the mistakes that I would not say mistake, but when everyone hears gender, we often like to think about just women alone, and it also involves men. um it's just that most times we have more gender issues relating to women than men. So that is why most times it looks like women, that gender issue is all about women. So we have report that we've worked on over the years at DataFight. We have newsletter. We have a newsletter, a gender newsletter too, where we do like weekly publications. I think that is we publish that every Wednesday. Yeah, every Wednesday. And It's called Senorita. Our weekly newsletter is called Senorita. So it's like a publication, but you get it as a newsletter, which takes you to our website. So it's just a publication that looks at topics of gender equity and inclusion, and it involves both men and women, both of the genders, both female and male, not just female. I know when people hear senorita, you try to you we tend to think about senorita like just miss in Spanish, but the way it's spelled, it's called senor. Senor, that is the mister. Then we have the Rita like senorita. So it's like a combo of both of them. So we have that publication that goes on our website every week. Then in addition to that, we have two gender reports. We have one from 2020, then we have an updated report from 2025. It's called Gender in Nigeria. The report is called Gender in Nigeria. It's a report by Data Fight, and it gives an analysis of the current state of gender equality in Nigeria. And it has like a lot of data too, a lot of data that you can think of. It's more like a collation of everything gender data in Nigeria. Yeah, we like to think of it like that. A collation of everything gender in Nigeria. So yeah, Kenny is presenting the what it looks like now, and I think a link will be shared later on to where you can find all of this re, resources. Then in addition to this report and publication, we also have data points, data sets relating to gender. So at most times, I think people talk about how they're unable to find related data that that has to do with women and men in Nigeria. So you can find most of our data set on Dataplex. So you have an option of downloading all of the data set at Dataplex. And if you need a specific form of data, you can also write to DataFight to request for data depending um I don't want to say availability, but just depending on some factors, we would definitely provide our support towards getting the data. So I think yeah, that's pretty much everything when it comes to everything gender in um data fight, everything related to gender reporting in data fight. Then also we also have a newsletter called Data Dives. So Data Dives is not mostly about gender, it's not only about gender, but sometimes it covers issues, topics relating to gender. So in such a way that we give like a deep dive into gender related issues that is most times it draws from what is happening at the moment, and um it just gives a deep dive into the data, everything data relating to the topic, trends, and maybe outliers relating to that topic. It's just basically an insight newsletter relating to gender, as the case may be, for gender related issue that is happening at the moment. Yeah, then we also have data cat. So data cat is like a short form of we like to call it data to go. Yeah, so you're getting the data, just visualizations to show you trends or um everything happening, anything happening. Sometimes we use trends, sometimes we use trending topics, sometimes we just like go through maybe data sets that we think is helpful. So data cat is just a quick visualization of trends, of topics. And I think we're also doing a series on 16 days of activism at the moment, where we're also trying out data cards daily for the 16 days of activism. And we're also doing some other form of content creation just to bring awareness to 16 days of activism that is mostly which is focused on technology facilitated gender-based violence at the moment. So all of our outputs they're all related to that theme. That's the theme for 2025 for the 16 days of activism. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yes, that's pretty much everything gender related at Data Fight. So if anyone would like maybe want to ask any question regarding maybe where to find data or a specific form of data that they want, or just any question, I'm open to answering them. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you for keeping that brief, Khadija. I probably just want to jump on one and just ask, um, maybe in 2, 3 minutes, what from your experience working with data over the years, from your experience editing and probably reporting several gender issues, what are the let's say 3, 4, 5 key points that you would advise any journalist or any researcher to look out for when they are trying to work on any gender related story? I mean, basically, what I'm asking is if you were to work on a story, what are the things you are looking out for? How does it really help you fit into the concept of, oh, I'm a data analyst and I have to report this issue from a gender perspective or a women related issue perspective, and what are the things I'm probably looking out for, especially when I'm trying to find the numbers, just to just set the tone really. Khadija, did you get that? Yeah, yes, you're on mute if you're speaking. Hello? Hello?
Okay. Sorry about that. I was unable to unmute myself. I think that is due to the
Mm.
settings of the meeting. So thank you so much for that question, Kenny. Um, so most times when it comes to gender related issue, one thing you have to understand, especially if you're trying to, like in my case, most times when we're trying to write things related to gender, we at Data Fight we like to use data to back up any of our publication reports. Data rather is always at the center of all of our work, and we also like to write data-led stories in place of data-driven stories. And I think most times people mix both of this up. So data-driven is you think of an idea. For example, you're trying to write something on Senator Natasha Putti, and you're now looking for data on how many women have been assaulted, right? That is data-driven. But when data-led, when you want to write a data-led stories, you can now get a data set on how many women politicians have been assaulted, have like reported cases of harassment, and how many of them have gotten justice for this cases. That is a data-led story. The data is guiding you to write the story. While data-driven, you're writing the story, but you're using the data to drive the story. So most times when we write our data fight, we like to write data-led stories. So once you write data-led stories, it helps you, it guides you to not make the wrong assumptions, and to write your stories without as. And I think most times this happens to us where we have a certain idea in our head. So even if the data says otherwise, because we're like the idea is kind of in our mind already, we tend to put some of these biases into our stories. So the first thing to do when writing a gender related story is to not put biases, not do not let do not let any bias come into what you're writing. I would give you an example, and I think this happened towards I think there was some form of celebration about men. Was it suicide? I can't really remember what the day was. So we're trying to write like a report. So most people started reporting. I think it was about suicide. Yeah, and it started trending on social media that men die. Yeah, that men die from suicide the most in in the world. That the data, it was just flying around on social media. Yes, I think. So when we sat with that data, for I think it was an episode of Senorita where we wanted to write that something related to that story. Excuse me. So when we looked at the data sets, we found out that women actually die from suicide than men. So the data that was going around, I think it was maybe it had to do with it was maybe I think it was a problem of percentage and numbers. I'm not really sure what the problem was, but when we looked at the data, we actually said that women die from suicide more than men, and this is because women experience different things. We have um this word escaped me. This thing that happens after birth, this depression that happens after birth. I'm sorry, the word has escaped me. Kenny, can you help with that word? Can you remember the word? There's a certain word it's called.
No, no, it's not.
Postpartum depression.
Postpartum depression, yes, thank you so much. So we found out, like, we had to read further that okay, why do women actually die from suicide more than men? So they gave reasons like postpartum depression. They gave reasons like was it menopause, different reasons of why women actually die from suicide more than men. And on social media, people had related, people that started talking about this topic said men die from suicide because of economic pressure. So that is like one example of how a you can tell a story wrong with the right data. It does not mean the data is wrong. It's just that you have to look at your data without any form of bias. So this helps you to write your stories objectively without putting any bias into it. So I think yes, regarding that, yes. Kenny, I hope I'm able to answer your question.
Yes, thank you very, very much. And thank you for, I don't know if anybody have any other question. You can quickly raise your hand because I know she has to do something else now. Well, thank you. Let's hope that any other question I can try to answer it. Even though I'm a man, I hope men too can also write gender-related stories. Um, that's just okay. So, but thank you very much for sharing that insight. I mean, one of the things we just wanted to do is allow you to understand how we work at data fights to say that, oh, even when we look at data, we try to give a section of um, understanding data from the point of view of saying, okay, yeah, there is an angle to how you can tell stories, and there is an angle to how everybody can always see stories. And if we not begin to capture some of those related angles, all right? Um, I was about saying an example. Then I just remembered that the example was a story we are planning to write. So before Khadija tells me, you are giving an example for a story we are conceptualizing. We're planning to write the story, so let me know. I want to just give like the most basic example of something happening right now, and we're already thinking about writing that story. I mean, we try to pull data for that story, so let me not make that example. But I'm just saying in a nutshell that, and even as things like okay, I mean, the budget that I want to show you today is how you can always find that, okay, there's always a gender angle to some of these things, and you don't have to be, the word is stereotype to how you tell your stories, especially allowing that the issue, I mean, or the conversation happening out there is what is dictating how you tell your stories. But then, yes, Khadija, please go ahead.
Yes, just to add to your point before I run quickly, is what you said about there's always a gender angle to everything. There is always a gender angle to everything. You just have to like think deeper. When you look at it, there's a gender angle to everything. Even something as basic as normal as tax, there's a gender angle to it. So think of I think there was a workshop I went, and they spoke about how in indirect taxes, how women are targeted for indirect taxes more than men. So most of these people, I think they call them, we like to call them they're like tax collectors, but like informal tax collectors. An example of this is those that have stores in markets, this little stores, maybe just outside the market where it's not like an organized thing. Even on the roadside, they all pay money. So they gave an example of women in a certain area. I think it was in Abia State, where they said that women in Abia State that have stores said that they are targeted because these people think they are weak, so they come to them for indirect taxes more than they go to men. So for a man, they're like, big man or something. The way the manner of approach towards the man is even different from the woman. That is even if they approach the man. So there's a gender angle to every single thing, both for the male part and the female part. You just have to think deeper and look at your data deeper and differently. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to allow you to go now, and then invite straight up to Symbiat, who would help us expand our knowledge to learning how, yes, we can, undo or maybe understand gender-related issues and probably help us to see some of those perspectives. So yeah, Symbiat, you have the floor, and thank you once again, everybody.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Cynthia. I'm the founding director at Niger Feminist Media. We are a media organization that's focused on reporting women's stories to advance an inclusive gender landscape and gender equality in Nigeria. This topic is close to my heart. So thank you, Data Fight, for organizing this very important training. This is not just a conversation. This is something that's very, very important. So I would like us to take to heart every conversation we have on this issue and every point that we share. So just have as a disclaimer, I've probably done several tips and training like this for journalists, but at the end of the day, when I get the opportunity to see their stories, I typically realize that they don't apply these lessons to their stories. So it's almost as though we say this and then we just forget about it and move on to the next thing. There are usually conferences dedicated to having gendered conversations, and after the conference, everybody has moved on. We are coming back to say the same thing. So it's my hope that this would not be one of those trainings where after the time we dedicate to this, it just ends there. We are not going to apply it. So please, if we could, keep an open mind. If possible, take a paper and a biro to jot some of these points down that you want to ensure that you implement or apply in your work. So I'm going to share my slides. And if you're able to see it, just do a thumbs up. Okay. Is my slide visible? Okay, perfect. Thank you,
Yes, it is.
Edifon. So, gender lens data reporting. And what we are simply talking about is, doing data reporting and applying gender lens to your story. So today we are going to be discussing why it matters, what is the intersection between gender and data, checklist for an equitable reporting, toolkits, and what to remember. So like I said, it's important that this is going to be quite a short training unless you have questions, in which I'll be happy to take. Right? So seeing gender. One of the main things that I've noticed from my conversation and experience is people typically say they don't see gender. And it's almost as if they brag about not seeing gender as though it's like a normal thing. And when you talk about men and women, they just like, I don't see gender. I just see, you know, I just see anyone that is doing good. I'm just seeing anyone that is doing right. I'm just seeing anybody that's excellent. But the truth is, one way or the other, we all see gender. An instance is when we started this meeting, I think the moderator saw gender, because one of the things he said is, this is the first time I'm having two women, and each other just came out naturally. So he saw the gender and saw that he had two women that would be speaking, and he even suggested maybe he has another woman just to make it three. So that's an example of seeing gender. The thing is, sometimes when if it is all men that are in that room, we then don't see gender because we think it's normal, it's natural. It doesn't jump up to us like something is wrong. It's the same way we are doing the national anthem. Our national anthem has where no man shall be oppressed, right? And this passed through how many people know where, God knows. And for some reason, they did not see gender because the word there was man. But if it is where no woman shall be oppressed, suddenly they will see the gender and say, why is it only women? Why is it woman that is saying? And they just expected that women should automatically be included in men, right? So when people generalize both men and women using the word man, we don't see anything wrong with it. But when people say women and use it as a form to include man, men take it as a personal insult. In fact, the word woman is used as an insult to men. Like, why are you behaving like a woman? Meaning to say, why are you acting sluggish? Right? So the word woman is culturally seen as an insult when you tag it to a man. But for some reason, when we tag the word man to woman, we just think it's normal. We just think it's natural, right? And then we say we don't see gender. But what we are saying is we don't see any problem if men is the fault, and if men are included as women. That means we don't see the importance. This is supposed to be a very short training, and I'm speaking a lot already. What we are saying is we don't see if women are not recognized specifically as themselves. If they are recognized including or adjunct to men, we'll say we don't see gender. Another importance of seeing gender is, for instance, if you, let's go to Unsplash, for instance, and say, I want to change my screen. I want to change what I'm presenting. So this is a website where you can get pictures. Can we see what I'm sharing? Can we see the Unsplash website? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So if I search photos of a hand, what do you notice? The photos of a hand you are seeing there are white people. They are all white people. You don't see black people there. A white man will tell you, I don't see gender. Or a white man will tell you, I don't see race. But the problem with not seeing race, and the problem with you just saying photos of hand and just select photos of the hand, is that you are systemically excluding Black people. And I know we all have this experience where when you research anything on Google or any platform, which is why I showed you this, it automatically brings white people. So if your mind is just, let me just pick a picture of a hand, a white person can just pick a picture of a hand and move on with their lives. But as a Black person, you need to be intentional to say pictures of a Black hand. And then you begin to see options. You can see that I was intentional about it. And it was because I saw race. I put it in my mind that I saw race because the world has been organized in such a way that it comes race first, gender second. So if you check the picture of a hand, you will see white people's hand, but it will also mostly be dominated by white men hands. So this is not because they are trying to systemically exclude us, but the point is they are the one that designed the website. This is their environment. They will naturally take the pictures of people in their environment. You don't expect a white person to be designing a website and they will now go and start looking for Black people to add. Their default to be the people in their environment. Same thing if a man is telling a story, his default is going to be to tell the people that are surrounded with, which is most likely a man. So it then becomes our responsibility to see gender and race in order to ensure inclusion, right? So this is what I just said in order to establish seeing gender. Just last week I was having a conversation and I hear this over and over again. I don't see gender. I don't see race. You should see gender. You should see race because realistically, the world is organized in the way that it's default. That's the world we are in. If a white person is the one designing a white product, white people comes first. So if you just then say, I don't see race, and you as a Black person is writing stories, and you're just picking pictures and pictures and pictures that comes across to you without thinking for a second that, wait, let me specifically search for a Black person. All right, what you are doing is you are contributing to your own systemic erasure because what is going to be viewed there, out there, including your stories, including out of your country, is white people. And you're setting white people as the default. You're setting white people as superior. It's not because they are, but because you have refused to be intentional, especially when using the resources of others, you are systemically excluding yourself. It's the same with gender. If you are writing a story and you don't intentionally say, I want to include women, because women are the one that are systemically excluded. Also, the same way I'm saying gender because race, because Black people are the one that is systemically excluded. So even if you don't live in America, even though you've not experienced apartheid or race, it still affects you because the global world is first and foremost surrounded about white people, then male people, before you come to women and girls. So I hope I've been able to lay a solid foundation for this. Because several times when we are talking about women, they'll be like, why women? Why women? Why women? The fact that we're even asking that question, why women, shows that we see gender. But when it's about men, we don't say why men. And then when women then begin to ask the question, but why men? Why men? Then we begin to say, why are we focusing on men? It's because there is a systemic exclusion, whether consciously or unconsciously. It then becomes our responsibility as journalists to make sure that we are contributing to an equal media landscape and an equitable world. So I hope I've been able to establish that. This is partly why this session is extremely important. We should not take it as any other training because one way or the other, many of us are guilty in this form of systemic exclusion. I started with language as an example because over time, I still see journalists' resistance to using gender neutral words. It's very easy to use, but for some reason, we continue to use chairman, 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 even though the gender neutral word is chairperson. We continue to use policeman, 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 even though the gender neutral word is police officer. So even though there are women in police force, in the police force, even though women has intentionally entered the police force, we still continue to exclude them as though they don't exist and as though men are still the default. And this starts from our work as journalists. And if any of us go back to our stories, we would see that we are probably guilty of that. But that's because we have not made the intentional effort to see gender in every single thing that we do. Now, if you look at my picture for this slide, for instance, it's very intentional. It's not by mistake. And I hope it's my slide everybody is seeing. My slide for the training. Can you confirm that?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
I
visible.
think, yes. So when you look at these pictures here, what you will see is a man, a woman, a boy, and a girl. And this makes a balance of people. When I was preparing this slide, what was suggested to me as a default was two white men. But I was intentional to show every population. This is what we mean by people. This is what we mean by gender balance. This is what we mean by fair and equity. Even up to your pictures, it must show that. So when you're writing a story or doing a story, it is no longer a question of, oh, something is wrong with this picture. Oh, why is it only a man that is in this picture? Or even maybe people are not thinking of it. What you are seeing here is simple gender balance. And you can see, I am not excluding children as well. Why? Because children are people, right? And while I'm not excluding children, I'm not making it just boys or just girls. This is what we mean by gender balance. The fault usually will just be all men to show people. But men are not the only people in the society, and men are not the only one that exist. A proper report will be one that is exclusive to all people in the society, which will be men, women, boy, and girl, as you'd have seen. This was not by mistake, it was intentional. And that's the level of intentionality I would urge each and every journalist to have. It's one of the reasons why we have Nigeria Feminist Media, in order to train journalists and to ensure we have journalists that are actually working on intentionality. So if you're on my team, anything you write will not fly if, if it's not intentionally inclusive, right? So another thing is gender influences people's experiences, right? Your gender influence your experience in the world. What a man experiences is different from what a woman experiences. I'll give you an example. I was involved in a one chance one time in Lagos. I was rushing to work early in the morning and I took a Serena bus. On myself and a guy entered the Serena bus. A guy entered, I followed him. We both entered. We are the only two victims in that Sienna. One man, one woman being a victim. We experienced two different forms of violence. Even though both of us were in the same situation, they wanted to rob us. The man behind just used one neck to carry my neck. The man on the ground, they used pistol to hit him. Why? Because they saw gender. They felt like I'll be less resistant, and even then I was really smaller. So they had to use one hand. They felt like the boy would be, or the guy would be more resistant. So they used gun to threaten him. So you can see that even though we are in the same situation, our experiences were different. When we were released, I was extremely happy to be released. When the guy was released, he was extremely angry when he was released. They took my money and properties. They took his money and properties. Him being threatened with a gun was not what made him angry. The mere fact that they robbed him made him angry. While I was happy. Why? Because people that robbed us were men. They told me to lie down, and I thought they were going to rape me. So to leave that situation without being raped made me extremely happy. All the money they collected for me did not matter to me. So you could see that while the man's fear was being killed or his properties being taken and so being angry at the unjust, my fear was quite different. And we're in the same situation. My fear was to be raped. And to leave that not raped, thank God though, you can collect all my property if you want. So that is how gender shapes our lives. So if you are telling a story, the experiences is different from the gender. It's basically the reality, which is why you cannot afford to exclude one perspective from the other. Even when it comes to opportunities, gender shapes our opportunities. It's not a coincidence that there are more men in tech and that there are more women. And it's not a coincidence that there are more women in makeup than there are more men. It is our gender, the way we were groomed, that shaped those opportunities. So while they give girls toys, pink, air to play with as children, they are giving boys trucks and guns to play with. They are likely to do police and thief play more, while girls are likely to do daddy and mommy play more. So all of those things begin to shape our mind and our experiences and the opportunities that we end up getting in life. Even our interactions, gender shapes it. The men have bro code that they do. That is an interaction. Women are still trying to form sisterhood. That is an interaction. Meanwhile, women are told to compete for men validation, while men are told to be very wary and not behave like a woman. That's why if a boy is crying, they'll be like, man up, why are you crying? But if a girl is crying, they'll say, left hand, left hand. You know, girls are heart threaded. It's just the difference in our grooming, right? So that is why when you are looking at data or when you are reporting gender, you cannot afford to do a good story, an important story, an impactful story, and a story that shapes the world without not putting all of this in consideration. Right? I happen to be a journalist, and I know sometimes that when we are writing, we are just writing to check a tech plus. Oh, have I gotten an expert voices? Has this person commented? We are not examining the things that are said. So it is why you cannot afford to make male experiences shape the entire story. That has to do with both men and women. And you cannot afford to make women experiences shape the entire story that have to do with both men and women. I like the discussion that we had about suicide. Yes, men are more likely men commit more suicide than women, but women are more likely to commit suicide. If you look at the data, men are more likely to commit violent suicide, like using the gun to the head, because men have been groomed from courage. Women are more likely to slit their wrist or to just take poison, right? Even for this suicide, there are different factors. There are economic factors because boys have been groomed to grow up to take care of their family and provide. While there are also other factors for women, because women have been groomed that they have to have children and populate the world, meanwhile having postpartum depression. Again, they have been groomed to not speak about it because they've been told that the greatest joy of their life is to bring a child to the world. And once they bring a child to the world, everything that happens to them relieves. So they begin to imagine that, oh, if I'm having postpartum depression, it has to be something wrong with me. Now, it is our responsibility as media, as journalists, to shape the world. It's our responsibility to bring forth all of this data. It's not a coincidence that journalists sometimes ends up being activists because we are well read and we are the one that shapes the society mindset. So we ourselves need to know these things. And this is why training like this are important. There are a lot of trainings to gender. But I hope we are not paying lip service to these things and we are intentionally dedicated to learning and listening. And I've been able to lay a solid background for you that you can have two people have the same experiences and the way they will perceive it to be different because of their gender, because of the gender rules, and because of the grooming. So in order for you to have an effective data reporting and a fair society, you must see gender. You must see gender. if there are two men in a room and it has to do with people, you should ask, why is women not there? People will typically ask why a man is missing when it's only women that is there. But people feel like it is wrong to ask why women are missing when men is there. It is one of the reasons why feminists are one of the most hated group in Nigeria today, and why we established Nigeria Feminist Media, because all of us will learn and we ensure a safe society one way or the other. All right. So the next thing here is importance. So I think I've spoken about importance a bit. So the importance of seeing gender is that it gives you an in-depth coverage. It's not enough. We all hear about the danger of a single side story, right? So when you see gender, begin to ask yourself, how does this affect other communities? You begin to look at, okay, is my story all about men, or is my expert voices all about men? For instance, I will tell you, I've seen several gender stories that's passed through my desk. These stories are supposed to talk about women's experiences. For instance, these stories will tell you that femicide, a man killed a woman. And then they will go to solutions. And all of their solutions will come from men. Men will say, men stop killing women. Another man will say, basically because of these things. There is no solutions from the women who are being killed. There is no voice included about the women who are being killed. Why? And we see a lot of this lip service. People are doing stories about growth being used to undress women. And all of the experts for these same stories that you are saying is affecting women did not include women's voices. And I begin to wonder how that reporter does that story. And they do not think to themselves for 1 second that my story is incomplete. This story moved to editors and to a publishing desk, and it flies. And it begs the question, why then are you doing a story? Are you doing a story because you are passionate about it? Are you doing a story because you want to effect change? Are you doing a story because, what is your reason for doing a story? Because you cannot say you are reporting about women and their voices are missing in your story. And I see this over and over and over again. Because we are not seeing gender. People will literally do stories, include the pictures of the experts they interviewed. The pictures will be meant from up to down. The story is about what's happening to women. And for some reason, it did not occur to them something is wrong. In fact, you are doing a story about women, and the majority of your voices on experts are men. Why? Are you saying men are the experts of women's lives? Are you saying a man knows more about what it's like to be killed as a woman than a woman themselves? Do you not think there's something wrong in it? And then you say, oh, I did not see female experts to interview. Then why are you doing the story? Why are you doing a story that you don't have access to the community and the leader voice in the community? Are you doing a story so that you have just submitted a report? Why are you a journalist? Are you a journalist so that you want to have change in the world? Why do you take in several hours writing stories, reporting, and your story is not gender balanced or inclusive? It's not even about gender balance or inclusive. We're just using the word gender balance or inclusive because it's the barest minimum. If you want to report about a community or a group of people, you must have access to that community. I won't say I, as a person without disability, want to report on a person with disability. And then all my experts from up to down will be people without disability. What does people without disability knows about the life and experiences of people with disabilities? How do you want to solve their problem when you are not asking them and telling them? How? I won't write a story with person with albinism and not interview people with albinism. I'm not a person with albinism. I can only assume what happens to them. I want to give solutions. But it's people without albinism that are giving solutions for people with albinism. You know, when we begin to apply these things under context, it begins to make sense to us as ridiculous. But we are doing it to women, we don't think it's ridiculous. How can a white person write story about your country and all of the experts are white? Is that not why we begin to have media affairs saying they want to tell African stories in the African ways by African? Because they understood that a foreigner cannot tell your story. They don't live your reality. Can a foreigner that's never lived in Lagos tell me my experience with hustling in Lagos? And then we do gender stories, and all our experts are men from up to down. And I know after this training, some people will still do gender story. I'll mark everybody's face and name in this training. In fact, I'll write it down. I'll go and read your stories after this period. If you do gender story, and I see that your gender story are all men at this way, I'll send you an email. Because why? You're not doing an in-depth coverage. So you can see that I take this training really seriously, because this is not about the training. Really, this is about the change we journalists need to have in order to do our job effectively, if we care about it. If you genuinely care about journalism as a tool for social change, these are things you should genuinely care about and begin to implement from the second you leave this training. If you have a story draft, review that story draft. Is my report representative of the community? If your report is about a woman or what is happening to women and does not include women experts, don't pass that story. Because what are you writing? What are you saying? Who can give you an expert? There are lots of organizations, there are lots of women leaders. If you don't have relationships with them, if you don't know them, if you cannot reach out to them, if you don't know enough of them to respond to you, so why are you doing a story that you don't have access to the community? The only reason that we allow this thing fly is because we think it's irrelevant and important, and we are just paying lip service to fair inclusion, equality, this and that, but we shouldn't. We should do what is right, and that is the right thing to do. I like gender gaps and inequality. Yeah, your story cannot even highlight gender gaps and inequality when your story itself is gender biased and it's not even balanced. So the importance is it can help you highlight gender gaps and inequality. That is why you must see gender. You must see gender. If you don't see gender, sometimes you have 11 men in a room and just one woman about something that has to do with women. One of the reasons the gender law has not been passed, because the Senate are majority of men. Who cares about passing something that does not necessarily affect them? Because we are not reading the room and seeing the numbers and seeing the ideologies in the room, we are not able to pinpoint this gap. And when they do it, they'll be like, oh, these feminists have started. Feminists are men haters. Why do we begin to think that by asking for inclusion, it is somehow equated to 18 men? I don't know. I just asked this question. I don't understand it. You must always see gender because it helps you identify gaps and inequalities. And asking for equality doesn't take anything away from anybody. It helps us build a just and societable world, right? Ensure inclusivity. Yes, these are one of the checklists. Once you look at it, check to ensure that you are not excluding anyone. Because I was intentional with my slide, is that why I knew I must have a man, a woman, a boy, and a girl to ensure inclusivity, because gender is about everybody. Gender is about men and women and boys and girls. The problem, and why we are having gender conversation, is because women are usually excluded for myriad of reasons. I can't find woman, I don't see woman, I don't know where she is, I didn't notice, blah, blah, blah. But it just shows at the end of the day, they're excluded. So that's why the conversation keeps talking about women, 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 because they are the one, women and girls, because they are the one largely excluded. So in order to bring them and ensure inclusivity, to ensure you're not excluding everybody, to ensure your story is balanced, it's fair, it's just, it can do the right thing, to ensure you're covering the human population, then you must see gender. Improves policy design and effectiveness. Of course, you know that when they are calling for policies, they will call for experts. And we journalists are usually one of the experts they call for, because we are the one doing the research. We are the one doing the reporting. But what happens when we do research and we do reporting and everything is just boys and men? And I can easily go to any of the top websites right here, and you will see that they are mostly men, they are mostly boys that are the featured image or they are being reported. And it begins to give a false sense that women are not in the society, that men are the default. men are the majority. So when they begin to do policy design, women are excluded. In fact, when the media has already made it a culture for women to be excluded, we'll be thinking of women in policy. That is where they can do national anthem. And all the language is male-centered because media are still using male-centered language. No matter how hard women work, no matter how much they begin to complain, as long as we don't begin to effectively make this change, as long as we don't effectively to, no matter how we do policies and guidelines or training and say use gender neutral language, unless we don't begin to implement it and make it the norm that our language needs to be inclusive, it needs to be neutral, we will continue to have these issues, right? You will not allow for a policy design and effectiveness and we begin to run round and round and round. So promote accountability. Yeah. So it also promotes accountability. If you see gender, you know who you're holding accountable for. Why is this? Why is there less women in the room in decisions making? Why is it that Nigeria has president, all male from the beginning to the year for all these years, male president, and we don't have any female president? And yes, we are going to say it's because women are in the kitchen, women are busy giving birth, women are not competing fairly, who is holding women's hand, who is this, that, everything all comes back to the media because we are the one that has created the culture of what's acceptable. If we are beginning to report and the only reports we do and we spotlight is a woman wakes up at 4 a.m. to cook for her husband, and that's what the society celebrates and claps for, and they give her Indomie and all of these gifts. At the end of the day, girls watching, I will say what I should aspire to be is I should aspire to be a woman that wakes up 4 a.m. to cook. And if the woman that is in the Senate, like Senator Natasha, is the one getting bullied, 6 months suspension, and this, they are telling them that I should not aspire for politics. So it is not about, oh, let women go and compete. Who is holding them to compete? No, it's about what we, the journalists and the media, are spotlights to be things people should aspire for. It's what we, the media, have spotlight that we should be celebrated for. If men are being celebrated for being president and women are being celebrated for cooking for at 4 a.m., as a young girl, which one will you be going for? Who wants to come to this life together? So we set, the media has the power of agenda setting. The media have the power to change culture. If we collectively and genuinely, and I hope, please, data, take the attendance of elder people here, and more people must listen to this training. And I hope we are genuinely, in fact, I am pleading, right? Because as we are here, we are begging, I can kneel down. If we are genuinely care about making change in the society, the media can do it. The media can change people's culture. We have that power. And it is in our language. It is in our word framing. It is about what we choose to spotlight. If what they are choosing to spotlight about women is they have a big bum and they have just done surgery for their belly and all of those things. If that is what you are spotlighting, you are not spotlighting where women are making change in society. You are not spotlighting when they are winning awards. You are not spotlighting their work in the ministry. And you can do researches. Media rarely report about these things. Then what we are showing is that girls need to aspire in order to have beauty, in order for them to be respected, and in order for them to get to the media. It is not a coincidence that people will go to social media and women will start twerking in order to gain attention, because that is what goes viral. That is what they are going to celebrate. If they come and speak to, I want gender equality festival, who are these ones? Where are they coming from? Right? So the media has made it so that the people that we spotlight are what we are making for change. So, and we can't even facilitate any form of accountability for that. How can the media hold the Senate unaccountable for lack of gender representation, when even in our own story there is no gender representation? How do you want to help them accountable when you're not even reporting on women's stories? If you're not reporting things that happen to women, who do you want to drag? How do you want to say something is happening here and you should do something about it? You're not even reporting it. Your story does not even include the voices of the people that affect the most. Women were watching in horror as men were using rope to undress them. No outrage. No outrage. People, I saw journalists doing these stories and they were not asking the women how they feel. Sometimes when journalists do stories about women, I will go back and do a story on that same subject about women, because I'll be seeing the story and I'll be like, something is missing here. Can you not see that you're not asking the women how do they feel? Do you know how much terror women feel seeing other women being undressed on social media? That, oh, that means I need to be careful. I don't need to put my picture on social media. You do not ask them. Do you know how other women feel? On what should we tell them to do? You don't even ask the victim the questions. And you have done a report and you have published it. So how are you not supposed to hold X accountable? How? When your report does not even cover that. Your report does not even cover the psychological implication it has for them, the health implication it has for them, the anxiety it has for them, and how the media is excluding women from using digital space. We are not covering that. So how do we want to promote accountability? So it starts with us, the media. This training is very important. I hope I've not used half of my time already. Things like to then facilitate social change. One way or the other, we all live in this world all together, right? And I would think we would love to make the world a better place in our own little way. The media has the power to facilitate social change. Each and every one of us as journalists, we have the power to facilitate social change. Especially, and in social change, I mean gender. If you don't want men to be dying of suicide, of economic pressure, then maybe we need to begin to investigate how the burden of being a provider is detrimental to men and men's health. And look at how women being excluded from education and from pursuing their ability fringes them economically, which means that they need to rely on their male counterparts. Maybe when we begin to spotlight these things, and then we begin to say, perhaps both men and women working and both men and women taking the workload from domestic care will lead to a balanced society and a better world. So even when we are saying feminism, gender equality, this and this, the reason why it's gender equality is because the fringes that we are affecting, yes, it accords men more superiority. It boosts your ego. I'm the superior gender. I will provide her, you must submit. And then you beat the woman and she dies, and then they take you to prison. And that's the end of your own life. But perhaps if we all treat one another with equality and respect, and we allow it to show in our stories, then we can begin to facilitate social change. I read a story that was sent to my desk, because someone knows I'm a gender advocate and a gender journalist and whatever. And they said they wanted to query or the reason for low participation of women in Ondo contest, in Ondo gubernatorial, in terms of the fact that they were not contesting. And the person with confidence sent that story to my desk to review, and I was upset. And I told them, don't send me this kind of story again, don't be spoiling my day. You are doing a gender story on why there were no women that was contesting, or that reached the stage of contesting to governor, and everything were men. And you as a journalist, you did not go to Ondo to ask. You did not even call women in political parties in Ondo to ask questions. You did that story, and then you interviewed someone that is into economy or something, and tell the person, and you confer expertise on the person, or someone that is into food industry. You confer expertise to the person to tell you why that must happen. And you say, because women hate women. Women don't even like women. They don't even vote for women. And then you call that an expert story. And then you gave that as your explanation on why there were no women in Ondo. And you sent that with confidence for publishing. How do you want to facilitate social change? In your mind, you are looking for a solution to the problem, or I would assume. But what you are doing is you are adding more problems. First and foremost, you added people that are nothing about it, and you confer expertise to the person and say the person is an expert. And in addition, you didn't even ask the people in the party what had happened. You didn't even query the systemic issues as to why when women are in political parties, they are being told to be at the back until men call them, because I have been a member of YPP party. They tell them to go to the back and that they should be about food serving. And when women want to come, I was sitting at the table. I was the only woman at the table, and the men there were telling me to stand up, and I told them I'm not going to stand up. Why will you tell me to stand up? Am I not a member of this party? You do not you do not question and ask, what is the systemic issues that happen? Ask the women there, how are they relegated to the behind? They just grunt, and your answer is just women hate women. I was very angry. How do you want to facilitate social change with stories like that? And I see this over and over again. We'll say we are doing journalism stories about women and their relevant issues. We are doing journalism stories about women, and it is, should women be wearing short clothes or long clothes? I'm telling you, I've read that story for editing before. What does the clothes women wear? How does it add to a better world? Can you see that that's the story you are doing? Why? There are myriad of issues. There's the issue of Ochanaya there. There are myriad of issues, systemic issues. But the story you want to cover as gender story is, should a woman be wearing a long cloth or a short cloth? What change do you want to facilitate? So I tell you, before you do a gender story, it's gender stories that you know will have women in it. Ask yourself, what do I want to achieve? How does this help society be a better world? How does it ensure a just, inclusive, and fair system? And this is the importance of seeing gender, right? In fact, look at the quality of the opinions of people you call experts. Because a lot of times we just take opinions from the next person accessible to us, and we put it there just so that we fill the blank that we've used expert opinion. Because your newsroom probably have a criteria that expert opinion will go into your story. And so you just look for the next person available to you, or your friend, or somebody you know in another organization who are not experts at all, who their opinion is highly problematic, and you just put it there just to move it. Ask yourself, will it facilitate any social change? And that is why we should care about gender. The next thing is intersection between gender and data reporting. So when reporting stories, they are in two lanes, especially, and I think the previous speaker gave a term to it, on something like gender-based violence. Add data to enhance understanding of systemic patterns. This is one of the things we do at Nigeria Feminist Media. We can be doing a report-led, it may be about gender-based violence. And another thing that I see, thank you, Data Fight, for bringing me here. I have a lot to say to journalists. Another thing that I see, we will be reporting gender-based violence. A man has just killed a woman, right? And then the picture of the story will be the victim. The names of the story will be the victim. The perpetrator identity will be unknown. The name of the perpetrator will be unknown. And we'll publish it as we have done stories. Sometimes we'll be on ground to cover these stories. And for some reason, we don't know the name of the perpetrator. We don't know the name of the picture of the perpetrator. We don't know. We did not care to ask, or maybe we are hiding it. I don't know which one. But something has to give. And these are the type of things we need to start talking about. We need to start reporting about. How are you able to report that a man has done something to a woman, but for some reason, you do not have the identity of the man or the picture of the man? Is he a ghost? Because what then happens is that you begin to reshape the conversation as to what women should do so as not to get killed, rather than why men should not kill. And then we begin to say we are doing gender-based violence. Everywhere, we see gender-based violence now. It's one of the categories that is most competitive. We are doing gender-based violence, we are doing gender-based violence. But for some reason, should not be, as journalists, we should not be doing gender-based violence stories for the purpose of doing gender-based violence. We should be doing gender-based violence for the purpose of reducing it in the society. We must always go back to why. What is the systemic change we want to make? It's reducing it in the society. And the way you can reduce this in the society is to make sure that the conversation centers on the perpetrators. How do we stop it? How do we end it? How do we spotlight on the perpetrators? The people that should be getting the stigmatization and the shame should be the perpetrators, not the victims. But a lot of time, even till today, I can Google just one story and now you will see the feature image, it just be Kano or Enugu, or maybe the victim. In fact, there are some stories you will see, the face of the perpetrator will be covered and the face of the victim will open. It is us journalists that are doing it. I'm journalists like everybody here too. Right? So always when you are doing gender-based violence, part of the things you need to do is check who your story is protecting. If your story is protecting perpetrator, as a journalist, you are part of the problem. Your story should be protecting the victim and should be exposing the perpetrator. Or your story should be protecting the survivor and exposing the perpetrator. We always get it wrong. It's almost as if we are protecting the perpetrators. And so we don't have pictures for them. We don't have the names of them. We don't insist on it. We don't do investigative reporting on why this is a norm. We just accept it. And I hope this is a generation where we are going to do critical change in Nigerian media journalism and the way we report stories. There are lots and lots of gender training. There are lots of town hall meetings on gender courses, this and that. All of this training should start translating into systemic change. It's one of the reasons I don't want to be a lecturer assistant or something, because I get very upset if we are doing all of this training and it's not translating into implementation. It should try. We know these things, but we take it with levity. And perhaps they are the most important aspects of our jobs, because these are the things that could facilitate systemic change, social change, right? Then society does not seem to understand patterns, and this is data reporting. And so thankfully, DataFind have done this kind of training in order for us to see the essential role of data. People are not able to connect the dots. What data does for you, it helps you connect the dots. A woman was killed today. Don't just report it and move on and say a woman has been killed today. Report it and say, this is the number 88 woman that has been killed in Nigeria this year. Now we are beginning to show that there's a problem. And this is why we had Nigeria feminist media, in order to begin to connect the dots and show systemic change, because people don't seem to get it. Because when you say murder is happening to women, they will say, oh, men to her mother. But look at the data. How many women kill men versus how many men kill women? Men are the biggest killer of women and other men. And this is not an attack on men. It is not. If we genuinely care, we should want a solution to the problem. And this is where data comes in. The reason we have all these needless arguments on social media is because the media is not spotlighting the data. And this is the important role of data. Begin to show it. It's not even this is the number 88 woman that's been killed. This is the number 88 man that has killed a woman. That is how we begin to change language and begin to show. If we are genuine about wanting to create social change, if you are genuine about data, that is how you use data. That is how you use data to show that there's a problem, to show that there's a need for state of emergency, and to show that the society needs to begin to do something, either in the way we train boys, in the policies we make, in the interventions we make. Everything drives from the media. Policies, intervention, training, grooming, it types on the media. How does the media frame the story and how do they use data? It is. But are we going to start doing this thing? We will mark attendance. I will check everybody's story from now. Right? So that is one way you use data to enhance understanding of systemic patterns. And then when engaging in data, evaluate the data to ensure it counts for gender representation and impact. Don't do a story and say the story is about data reporting, and your data is only accounting for men, it's not accounting for girls. It's only for women, it's only accounting for boys, it's not accounting for girls. Always remember gender balance. If you don't take anything from this, always remember, see gender. I don't see gender for negative, see gender for good. It's not only when they are sharing scholarships to women. Everybody will now start asking, why is only women that are giving scholarships? It goes back to data. Because if the media has spotlighted the data, and the data has already shown that 5,000 men have received scholarship this year, and then they are not giving women 500 scholarships at a goal, nobody will be asking the questions, why only women? It will show that men have been beneficiaries of these things. If we use data to show that men are 90%, and these are just blank data I'm giving, if we show that men are 90% more educated than women, and by the time they begin to add the data to add 50 more in order to make them to even reach 70 or 80, people will not be asking why women. It's because we are not using our data right. If it's why society will say, don't focus on gender equality, focus on gender equity. And when they see gender equity in practice, they begin to say, why are you doing this? What is this? What is this? This is Ojoro, this is tokenism, this is this. This is gender equity. Because what is gender equity? If somebody has 10 sheep and he has just one, give the person 9 more in order for it to be 10 for gender equality. But if men have 10 sheep and women have just 1 sheep, and they want to give women 9 more sheep, they'll be asking, this is tokenism. This is tokenism. But if people ask for gender equity, do you not understand that gender equity leads to gender equality? It's lack of data. It's because we are not using the data in the right way. It's when you see a data and say, they say Nigerian women are the one that cheat the most, or Nigerian women are the one that have the most HIV/AIDS. We are not using data. We are using data for our bias, and the society can use data for their bias, but it's our responsibility as journalists, if we want to use social change, to use data appropriately. Let me tell you, it's not hard to do a story if you are truly passionate about it. That's one thing I've learned about it. If you are truly passionate about change, leading to change, it's not hard to do a story. It's not hard to use data, and it's not hard to understand why you're using data. We must use data right. And we journalists are in that position because we are the one that research. We are the one that read. If I see some mentality that's coming from a journalist and I'm really like, why don't you read? Don't you write? Don't you report? How come? Somebody can do a story and then you ask them questions about the story and their experiences will just be like, and response will just be like, are you not the one that wrote this story? It's no, didn't you do the research? Didn't you do the data? It starts from us not just doing story to mark the calendar, or just doing story to say, I've submitted a story today, I can collect my salary. Or I've submitted this story, I can now begin to get an award. Our first and foremost priority should be, how do we facilitate social change with this? So when doing data, evaluate your data. Is this data accounting for just men? Or is it accounting for men and women, or boys and girls? And there are some stories that is only men you need to account for, and it's fine. There are some stories that you need to account for only women, and it's fine. There are some stories you need to account for only boys, and it's fine. There are some stories you need to account for only girls. It's okay. But it becomes a problem when your story is about people, and then you're accounting for only men, and men the only people in the world. That is where the problem comes in. The problem comes when your story is supposed to be accounting for women, and your data is showing men. Go and count it. Do survey. Do quantitative data, but just do it right. Right? So that is the intersection between gender and data. You will see, as even who don't understand how data is so important, you will see people saying, oh, we need to marry 4 wives because there are not enough men in the world for women. Right? So that way it will be balanced and every woman can have a husband. That's why we need to. But when you use data, you will see that that logic is flawed because the representation of men and women are almost the same. And there's most likely more men than women. So if each woman marries 4 wives, a lot of men will not even have wives. We also forget that not every woman wants to get married. We also forget that some people are not of maritable age. We also forget that some people are already divorced. Some people are single. Some people are not interested. So we just use sweeping data like that. And because of that, we begin to see Bauchi State begin to give one man 4 wives, or girls begin to marry them off for marriages. All of these things is because we media, we have not done our work to where we are supposed to do it. That is why this fringe argument exists in society. Because the data are there, but we are not spotlighting it. The data are here to show that this argument makes no sense. It's not mathematically logical. And these things influence the society, influence the decisions, influence the lives of real people. And that is why data is important. It gives you the right argument. But it depends on how to use data. Are we going to start using data in a way that will show the perpetrators and not just the victims? Perhaps we begin to say 500 men have killed 300 women this year. We begin to say, men, what's happening? Rather than say 300 women has been killed. Okay, who is killing them? Zibos. Oh, women, stop going to men's house now. Oh, women, you too, your eyes is jum. That's what they'll begin to say. We are going to be making the conversations about the women because those are the people that we are spotlighting. We are spotlighting the victims and putting them up for trial in the media. rather than spotlighting the perpetrators. Why? And then if they say, raise up your hand, you're a good and decent human being, everybody will raise up their hands. But somehow we don't think that some of these conscious or unconscious decisions that we are making does not makes us part of the problem. That's why if they tell me somebody is good, I'll tell them I want to examine it myself. Because by the time I begin to use the systemic bias, even you say something your own is too much, now I have to go back and think of it. But these are the things we need to think of, especially as journalists. Okay. So, key points for reporting, gender neutral reporting. Use gender neutral language. I am honestly really shocked that society is extremely resistant to using gender neutral language. And I did not realize how much it is until I began to edit stories. For some reason, we just don't want to use gender neutral language. We just want to use language that continues to set men as a default. Chairman, policeman, up until I reached the court. I was in court last year. The judge was a woman. And they were saying, as your lordship, sir, as your lordship, sir, as your lordship, sir. And I asked my lawyer, why are you people using sir for the judge? I began to tell, maybe it's Makaiser explaining me. And they said it does not matter. What? But if it is a male judge that is sitting there, and you are telling him as your lordship man, you have even lost that case. Because why would you be calling a male judge man? But for some reason, we think it is normal for you not to want to identify women and girls as a single person as themselves. You don't want to identify them for their own identity. We think it is normal. We think it is okay. We think we should take them. We will continue to report 5 local chairmen. Even when a woman was the chairperson, I was still seeing chairman. They are still calling the woman chairman. Is it that we don't want change? It goes to, it is because we are using chairman because the person is a man. So when the person is even a woman, we begin to still use chairman for them. It goes to judges and men. And so even when the judges are women, we still use the language of men for them. I don't believe it. What is going on? Why are we so resistant to these things? Is it just that we don't want to recognize women as a society? Because this is not a male problem. Men have the right to get angry when they use ma for them. Men will tell you, I'm not a mommy, sir. And people will say, I'm sorry, sir. And then they will use ma for women, sir, for women. And they will tell you when you correct them that is just what we use. Up to my driver's ID, they use Mr. Simbias for me. That same month, I went to an hotel and they recorded my name as Mr. Simbias Bakari. I went to pay for flight and my flight was Mr. Simbias Bakari. And I told all of them, is something wrong with you? And they all told me they use default title, Mr. Am I Mr.? Can you use Mrs. as default title for men? Where is the media? Where are we reporting? I have 1 million gender stories. If you don't have the ideas for gender stories, come and ask me. I have so much gender stories, I don't even know where I want to start from. We do not see any, we are so resistant to making male the default. That is the problem. The reason why we are talking about women is because even we journalists are interested in making male the default. Gender is about men and women, but the people being systemically erased are the women, even in language. Our constitution is male-centered. Everywhere, Mr. Our Bible is Mr. He. This thing is, Quran is he. We are telling women and girls they do not matter. That identity does not matter. They are not their own person. Men are the default. So when we begin to talk about women are not president, from where are they supposed to even become president? Ordinarily, their identity, they don't have it. And so we begin to take these things for levity. My team knows you cannot write a story and be using Mr. for a woman. Up until yesterday, anything was to be given an award, and the person just responded as hello, sir. And I'm not a sir. What is about feminist media that is even a sir? What is about Cynthia that is a sir? We just somehow think that we should be able to use sir and Mr. for women, and they should just accept it as neutral. Men are allowed to get angry. Men are allowed to say no. In fact, we dare not use, if you don't know somebody's identity, you dare not use Mrs. for them, just so that they don't get offended. But somehow we think we can use Mr. And this thing is in our report over and over again. For some, that is why it's my number one point here. Use gender neutral language. Chairperson, police officer, they, dear. For when you don't know how, you don't want to use he or she, she. Just use they or dear. Mr. FS, or just use their first name or their surname. These things are very simple to do, very easy to do, but sometimes it's the most difficult thing for us to do because we don't want to intentionally be a part of the change. That's what my own conclusion has been, is my opinion. Because I don't know why I would write a story and I would not make these issues, mistakes since the day I was taught. I don't know when I learned it, but since the moment I learned it and I understood, I felt these changes. Even organizations have editorial policies of using gender neutral languages. But when the writers write, they don't use gender neutral languages. They don't examine their work. So please, let us take a screenshot of this checklist. If you are writing your report, check this checklist. Is it gender neutral? Be intentional in including women's voices as experts. There's nothing like there's no women. There's nothing like women don't want to talk to me. There's nothing like I reached out to this woman. She did not answer me. You are a journalist. As a journalist, you know you have to cultivate relationships with experts in order to have their contacts. The problem is you have just cultivated relationship with male experts. In fact, for me, it is even more difficult for me to get a male expert than it is for me to get women experts. I have women experts as doctors. NGOs are there. There are a lot of women-led NGOs that you can email them. If one does not answer, if you email 5 people, at least 1 or 2 of them will answer him. But we think it's easier for us to give excuses than just to do the right thing. We surround ourselves with community of male experts alone, and our reports reflect that. Then we begin to give excuses. In fact, we will do a story that does not include any women voice and we move. And let me tell you, it's not only a story that has to do with women voices that should include only women voices as experts. As long as it concerns Nigeria, as long as it concerns society, then your expert voices must be both men and women. There's no industry that you will not find women. As a matter of fact, women are beginning to drive keke maura. They are beginning to drive boat. Women are working on site. You will find them. Go to the garage and say, is there a woman here that drives Mara? They will point her to you. Even in my street, there's a woman driving Mara. I was going to Yaba the other day. The 2 buses that took me from Ogba to Yaba, all of the buses were women. They were the one driving it. It will be rare for you to not find a woman in a sector. And even in that sector, you will still find. Even in tech sector, without there are less women there, you will still find. I will see people doing cybersecurity stories. And then they will say there are no women in cybersecurity. There is. Even in companies that are male-centered, you will still find a woman inside. Go and email them, send them LinkedIn messages. Do not do a story without women voices as experts, because what they are doing is they are contributing to the systemic erasure of half of the human population. So if they are beginning to raise their hands and say, who are part of the problem, you raise your own hand. You don't say you're part of the change, you're part of the problem. So these are the hard work you must do if you want to be a part of the change and a part of the solution. Use credible sources. Preferably those from experts such as NGOs and stakeholders. Please, do not go and use a food seller or an economic seller as an expert source in a gender story. There are NGOs. We have NGOs everywhere. Use experts. Use people that you know they are advocates on these issues. Let them be the one to tell. Don't do a story and just say, because I need an expert voice, you just tell me something. Let me just write it. Then basically gives you fringe opinions that are part. They may give you popular opinion, but popular opinions are not always right. Ask people that are doing the work. Look for NGOs, look for stakeholders, look for policymakers. Let them be the experts for those stories. Don't write a story about femicide. When I'm writing a story about gender-based violence, I will talk to a woman that is a victim of gender-based violence, is a victim of rape, and as a result, starts to have a organization because you are the one that can tell me where it's pinching you. You are the one. They've not undressed me with growth before. If I want to write a story of growth, I don't have my story to tell. I will go and search the media of women that have spoken about these issues that has happened to them and how it made them feel. And they'll ask you questions. In fact, I will ask you questions even deeper than what you have thought about and make you think about it and then give me the answer. Sometimes we just take surface answers and say expert voices. No, critique it. Ask questions. Use credible sources, because we are not just writing stories for publishing, we are writing stories for change. Your stories matter, no matter how small. You don't know the impact your story may have. You may never know. From someone reading it, you may change their mentality. How do we know all of these things? All our mentality are shaped by the books we read, by the articles we read. You're adding to the media landscape. Somebody may read your stories. Your story can validate an harmful opinion, or it can liberate somebody from harmful thinking. Your story, if we do enough of these stories, we can make social change. Gender. And in this gender, the people that are excluded, women and girls. Do you know girls are the poorest demographic in the world? We see girls, did we not just see Kaduna girls being kidnapped? Why? I'm beginning to ask myself, why they are kidnapping people? They will just go to girls' school and kidnap them. Is it because we media have done stories to the extent that we've made the pinnacle of lives of women and girls that of marriage, of cooking and sleeping? So when terrorists just need women to renew themselves, they go and kidnap small children. What is the role of gender? We should first ask, what is the role of media in this problem that we have, and how do we begin to change it? And where that's the mentality we should begin to tell our stories from. Why is it that when terrorists need people, they will go and kidnap girls? What do they want to use the girls for? To rape them, to make them sweep and cook and tell them to sweep, and they will still use them as farmers. These are the things we need to critique. Look at the numbers, ask questions, get information from credible sources. Build up your knowledge on gender. It's not enough to say, I'm not a biased person. You cannot even know you're a biased person. It's until you begin to read specifically on gender. That is why many of you, most of women-led organizations are followed by women. If you ask how many of you follow women organizations, then let me see. They are followed by women. Once it's women initiatives, men don't think they have any business in it. And so you only have a one-way street of view, that of only your male perspective. Women have only one way of view, that of female perspective. Let's begin to bring them together. Build up your knowledge on gender. What is all of this fuss about gender dynamics? What is this fuss about feminism? What of this fuss about gender story? What of this fuss about women? Is when you begin to read, you begin to connect the dots, you begin to see the issues, and you begin to know how to interact with it. You need to build up. It's not enough to say, I'm not biased. How do you know you're not biased? Can you explain how you are not biased? Is it coincidence? You begin to give reasons that do not even scratch the surface. And these are just the people that applied. These are just the people, these are just people that do it. I did not see gender. I did not know. Build up your knowledge on gender. Follow women rights organizations. Follow Nigeria feminist media. Follow DHS foundation. Follow women radio. Build up. Follow feminists. Don't just follow the people that echo your views, that give you confirmation bias. Follow women's rights advocates. When I want to understand a community, one of the first things I do is I begin to follow people there. If I want to understand people or women with ability, last week I slept around 2 a.m. because I was following ADHD. I've always known about ADHD, but I've always heard about it from white people's perspective. And that it's on a spectrum. How spectrum is it on a spectrum? I did not know until I entered Facebook and I began to see girls with ADHD, Nigerians. I didn't sleep until 2 a.m. I started watching that video. I was obsessed with their lives. That is how you build up your knowledge. I will not be talking to you about ADHD when I have not followed activists in the space. I have not watched the lives of women and girls in the space, the lives of men and boys in the space. I will not. You cannot speak authoritatively about gender or write or about gender if you don't follow the stakeholders. You need to follow the stakeholders, read books about it, read knowledge about it, build up your knowledge on it. That is how you can write effective critical report. That is how, if I write a story, nobody come and argue with me. I can argue from now to next year because I know, I read, I followed, I spoke to the stakeholders. And those are the type of knowledge we need to build up. If you are still asking why women are girls, it's because you have not read. It is because you are still in an echo chamber. That is why you still be asking, why is gender neutral language important? What is all the fuss? It's because you have not examined this thing. Build up your knowledge. That is how you can begin to create better. You cannot give what you don't have. You cannot write an impactful story. You cannot write a story that will change the world if you are not knowledgeable about the subject. And you can be, because we are journalists and it's our job to be. We have a very big job on our hands and we must take it with utmost importance and seriousness. All right? So build up your knowledge. There are toolkits on how to ensure gender neutral languages, how to write gender report, why you should write it, why it matters. Build up your knowledge on it. Everybody should be an expert. And journalists are to be an expert on social issues. Then ask what value your report add to the community and the global space, not just the community, but the global space. There are some conversations that we are still having in Nigeria that other countries have moved on from, and I'm wondering why Nigeria, why are we here? Well, the world is already talking about something else, but we are still there as if we are in 1980. Ask your when you are doing a report about should a woman wear gown or short skirt, ask yourself, what value does this report add to the world? I see a lot of irrelevant stories about women and gender. I don't even want to mention that platform. A woman who has been crying since morning that her boyfriend did not give her money to eat. Please, what does that story add to the world? We will report a report and they say, this woman knelt down to give her husband a salary. What good did this report add to the world? What does it add to the community? What does it even add to the what value? Nkechi Blessing wore 800 Gucci belts. What value does that add? There are local NGOs, women, working around the community to train girls. We will not sit down to report. There are female politicians doing incredible work. Not see. It is the belt of Gucci that somebody wore, or the one that is crying about her boyfriend. That is the one we want to report. What value does it have to our world? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. What good does it add when you say the report you want to do is about how women hate women? What good does that serve? What value does that serve? How does it make our world a better place? How does it make it a just place? How does it make it a fairer place? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. What good is it when all your gender stories is just to paint women bad or ineffective? Why are we not asking questions? Why are these things like this? When we are doing data reporting, and some of us will do data reporting, it is our story, the beginning of and end of our story is women have HIV. That's all. The question is, how did they get it? What are we doing to it? Why are we doing it? The beginning and end of our story will be there are less women in the tech space. Okay, why? How can we change it? That is when you are doing reports. And if you are doing normal stories, and gender reports is not about just doing specific women's story. We'll be doing a story about voters. But the featured image will just be showing only, in fact, if you're doing voting story, now it's either you are seeing women queuing, but you never see them in the position of power. We'll be doing data stories about how one female politician has been targeted, but the one that is targeting women, we'll do story about how terrorism has strike, and our story will only cover how it's affecting men. How is it affecting women? Do you think it's only men that go to the battle that will affect? The women that they are raping on the ground, you don't know it affects them. You are doing conflict reporting and reporting only about how it affects men. You will do health search reporting and it's only the men face that will be there. Very neutral stories about education, you put only men picture as if it's only men that go to schools. Workplace story, you will put only men picture there in front of laptop as if no, there are no women in your workspace. And so we begin to have the conversation of women don't drop money, women don't work, as if no, we are happy, we are not human beings, we that we are working morning to night. we still continue to portray women as a gender that does not work, that does not make money. And it's the media. You're not reporting this. When you are reporting things that concerns all Nigerians, your perspective is just male, as if women are not Nigerians. Stroll to the lead newspapers in Nigeria and check. Male representation, male representation, male representation, because we are not intentional. We are not intentional in hiding women's faces. And so it is women that now need to do women-led organizations like Nigeria Feminists in order to include women. But it should not be. When we are doing stories that concern Nigeria, it should be representative of both men and women. The problem is, and the language should be representative of both men and women. And we should begin to ask questions. What are the roots of these things that makes men the default in the society? Inclusivity is to ensure that men are not just the default, but they are equally represented, because there are two people in this world. There are men and women, boys and girls in this world. Male and females are in this world. And you cannot report only from the male perspective. You must include the female perspective. Look it. If you are reporting on gender-based violence, femicide, for instance, the Femicide Dashboard by DOHS Cares Foundation have insights on the number of femicide victims. In fact, this is just reported stories. They are far higher, right? But if you go to their dashboard, under 2025, you have all the data. Remember, when you're writing data, it's not just to be women killed. Who are killing the women? It should not just be how many, so women have been killed. How many men have killed women? That's what you should be asking. They are not killing themselves. Somebody is killing them. By how means balance your story? SSS number of men have killed women. SSS number of women have killed men. We begin to need to use data in how to be. I see too much passive sentences in writing. Passive sentences just focus on the victims. So you have this data here. You cannot say you don't have data. We should be enraged that over 119 deaths has been recorded in 2025. Over 119 men have killed women. That's the data that you are seeing right here. And the forms are the people that kill them. And these are people that they know. This is not stranger killing. These are husbands, boyfriend, intimate partners, son, father, fiancés. They have the data there. You can go and report. There was a town hall meeting that the police was saying at that time they had 80 deaths. I say 80 deaths is not a lot. What do we mean? Are you saying the lives of women and girls are dispensable? That 100 women have died in the hands of men, and we don't think there's a problem. In this year alone, 2025 alone, that have been reported. 100. Some women are not going to make it next year because some man in their life is going to kill them. Because when you begin to do this story, you become enraged. You begin to want social change. And we need to do this right. The data are there. The data are to help us. SOSA is an app by African Women in Media. If you go to their website, African Women in Media, just click SOSA, you can find experts. Because people are beginning to say they don't see women experts. So African Women Media design initiatives where you can search for experts around Africa to use in your story. These are resources that you can use. But most importantly, build community of women. If I see a woman that is a doctor, I am Simbiat, I'm a journalist, I may need your contact when I want to report. Hope you don't mind. Yes, they give me their contact. I'll message them. Remember, if I need an expert opinion, I will ask you. I aggregate data of experts, lawyer, even on Nigeria Feminist Media website. At the front page, just check GBV list of people, experts that are there. And the resource tab, check that there. Our focus is mainly on survivors. And one of the things we did at NFM is that we do a story about a survivor. We will connect them with partner organizations in order to help them for justice and also for healing. So our report does not just end at, oh, we write a story and they beat this woman and broke her head and move on with our life. Let us go and collect the next award. Or let us be fulfilled with ourselves, we've done story. That's not change. How do we connect them to resources? So these are two resources. But if where there's a will, there's a way. The most important thing is we need to build our mind, our will, our intentionality to want to report right and to want to ensure gender inclusion. Remember, put on your gender lens at all times. You must always ask yourself, are there women voices in my story? Is this story overwhelmingly male perspective? Check yourself, put yourself on check and balance. I do not see. It's not a coincidence that you see 11 men and 2 women. It's because we are not putting on our gender lens. Put on your gender lens. Is this balanced? Is my report representative of, am I using, remember all the toolkits, gender neutral languages, is the representation, is it balanced? You can see this is not a coincidence. I went to look for a picture of man and woman. It's not what you are seeing here. It's not coincidence. I went to look for it. We have to be intentional about it. If we are not intentional, we cannot create change. The world is already segregated around race and gender, male and white. So it is our responsibility to be inclusive. It's our responsibility to be intentional. We can't just look away at these things. Okay, so put on your gender lens at all time for your reporting. If you have any questions, you can be on this training. You can research, check NFM. We report women's stories. One of the reasons why we do this is to lead the chart on how things should be done. And I'm the lead for that thing. And you can shoot me an email as well. I hope I have not stressed you too much. Thank you so much for listening, and please feel free to ask me questions.
Thank you. That was. I mean, I at one point I had to like ask. Since I had to check all my own gender stories because and that was very very eye opening for a lot of us. Um, and I say this because sometimes we can be so segregative on how we tell our stories. A lot of times we can be so stereotypes in how we tell our stories. And we always want to see several perspectives to, we always want to be like, oh, it's the perspective. And we tend not to address the issue the way it is, or it is going to be happening. There were a lot of story ideas, and I hope a lot of people wrote a lot of things down. There are a lot of story ideas that you just busted. You even said one that we are working on. I'm not going to repeat it so that someone is not going to go and start doing it. I mean, so I remember some months ago I had to do an investigation. I couldn't go there, and some people had to help me get the interview. We were supposed to travel with the team, so I told them I can't follow you guys because I was somewhere else. So, and they were like, okay, who are the people you need us to interview? One of the first things I told them, I said, the only guys, see, the way you guys can, I'm not there to interview the guys you guys want to meet. But the only way I can know that you can bring me solid interviews that I can use to listen to and write my stories, make sure you speak to a woman. She would almost tell you the background details of everything that is happening. A man would naturally just summarize it and say, yeah, we are seeing those things happen. Yeah. And we have been speaking to them, and that's all. And you would just send me a 2 minute clip, and I can't do anything with the story. But I needed someone to give me a very good explanatory details about what's happening and how it's affecting them. And I told them, if you conduct 3, 4 interviews, make sure at least 3 or 2 of them are women. And at the end of the day, it was the only interviews I could use in the whole story was the women. Why? Because they were able to tell me very detailed perspective to how that crisis or how that issue that we're reporting was affecting not only them, but affecting the community at large. And it just tells us to, and just like she had mentioned to me, one of the things I picked was it just tells us that really sometimes it's not when we are trying to do the bad stories that we remember that there are women there, and which is something we do as journalists because we know that if a man tells you something, I lost my child, and a woman tells you I lost my child, you will be like, no, the woman's story will make more sense because sometimes it is also how we amplify other productive solutions that the women in those spaces are also offering. Sometimes in even trying to spotlight that challenge is also how we also look forward to what is making that challenge exist, which is something I've always tried to put into every journalism training I've spoken in the last months. Like we can't always just be reporting that this is the issue. There's a policy that is probably failing somewhere or something that is making, if we can't bring our story to always tie it back to addressing those policies, then we've just done news reporting. That's all we have done, no matter how lengthy it is. And no matter even though it wins the best of our world, we have just done news reporting. Someone must be able to, I'm saying that a lawmaker must be able to see your story and pick it up and draft a law or draft a bill about it. And a CSO or NGO must be able to pick that your story and run an advocacy campaign on it. And so your story must in at one point be so progressive, not just one off. It must be progressive enough that someone can always pick it up to make a change in the society and not just seeing ourselves as journalists to just report it. I don't want to start teaching, so let me stop there and probably allow anyone who is ready to ask questions. You can just signify out and would just share you. We'll just open your mic, signify with any emoji, and we'll just open your mic and see if you can ask one or two questions. Anyone? Okay. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. I enjoyed the session pretty much, but I have a question. So for those of us in broadcast, maybe TV, some of these things can be a bit challenging, especially truly, well, I get what she's saying and I agree, like building a network, but sometimes it can be extremely challenging when you want to do a report on let's say maybe abuse, and then you're trying to get a woman to talk, and then just the idea that her face is going to be out there, even when you tell her, oh no, we're not going to show your face, we're going to, even work on the voice. But it can be extremely challenging, and you have to keep on going on and on. Sometimes they agree. I've been in a situation where the person said yes and later withdrew. That's one. And then two, sometimes the data that is really available is mostly foreign data. We don't sometimes it's not accessible to get that of local and let's say organizations, so it can be also an issue. So how do we derive data that we can use? I'm saying that because recently I did a report on, I think, sexual abuse within a male child, and the data I could get was all from a foreign organization. I reached out to a local organization. I mean, just that NGO is in Abuja, but they were not really forthcoming. So it was an issue, and I just had to use the international NGO data that was available to me. So sometimes those issues are some of the challenges anyway I have faced as a journalist. So like, is there certain tips you can give on how to work around such? Thank you.
Okay. Maybe CBR to take the first one, then I'll probably just answer the second one. I hope at one point you were able to spotlight in your story that the accessibility to that data was a challenge, right? I'm always an advocate of, see, we have to start building local databases, no matter how little it is, right? And we have to start publishing it, right? Sometimes I know that availability of data sometimes is not, sorry, availability of data might actually be accessibility, right? You might probably not have a proper way of accessing it, right? I'd worked in the field of data journalism at least for a long time, right? So I know my ways to get data if I want to get them, right? But then, so that's sometimes where you need some of those partnership or someone inside or something like that, right? But if there is no data that speaks to that particular issue, I think one of the things that you can use to spotlight in that paragraph or that sub-headline on your story is the fact that every of the data that are referenced in this place are internationally conducted, which questions things like accountability, things like authenticity, you get things like locality of perspectives. And because we are not monitoring it internally, right? We might not be able to capture the whole cause or the whole effect of that particular issue on local communities then, and you probably just use that to back it up, right? So someone sees that tomorrow, like I said, and say, okay, can we use this story and begin to spotlight it and say, okay, this particular data, nobody's capturing it, let's start capturing it, right? And that's it. So Symbiote can go for the first one.
Hi, yes, thank you for the question. So I think your question is you're in podcast media and it's difficult to get women to speak, especially if they are survivors. So I mentioned in my story again that one of the things we need to focus on, especially when doing GBV stories, are the perpetrators, actually. We focus on a lot on survivors, but we need to focus on the perpetrators and the hard work we do to get survivors to come to the media and speak to us. Sometimes is more than the hard work we are doing to get perpetrators to come speak to us. Because why are there faces of survivors littered on the media and their names littered on the media? And there are very rarely pictures and faces of perpetrators. Those are the people we actually need to focus on in actually getting them. Yes, totally. When you're writing a report, you need to have the survivors' testimonial. But too often time, we write stories about survivors and we left them to the wolves. When these survivors come to tell us their story on media, and men call them liars, and even women join in to say they're false accusers, who protects them? In fact, this question I've been asking myself, why should women come out to be telling their stories? There's no way there's somebody ready to victim blame you. And justice is still not guaranteed for them, even when they have evidence. Look at the classic Ochanya. The auntie was imprisoned for negligence. Ochanya came and told her story. She was a child. She faced the camera and told her story. Where is justice for Ochanya? So is the issue really that survivors are not coming out to speak? Where is justice for Ochanya? A child faced the media, told her story. The perpetrators were let to go scot-free. Not until there was an outrage they are opening the case. So perhaps our focus should not even be on the survivors. Because where's the protection for them? Why is it that we talk about survivors not coming to speak and we are not talking about the perpetrators who we don't even see their pictures and face? There are too much survivors pictures out there. Because what is it that we keep spotlighting survivors. We keep putting them up to victim blaming. We keep putting them up to stigmatization. And there's little effort when we go on ground to want to report an issue. And the voice and name of the perpetrator is not there. Sometimes I'll be the one to research it and see that the name of the perpetrator is there. Sometimes the pictures of the perpetrators is not there. That is where our focus should be. The aunt of Ochanya was imprisoned for negligence, for allowing the child to be raped. The perpetrators were told to go scot-free. We need expert voices. NGOs, women that are leading NGOs will come out and speak. When survivors back out to say they don't want to, these are the questions we need to ask. And I can tell you that there are survivors that want to tell their stories. In fact, NFM has a lot of stories of survivors that we have not treated. If you want survival stories, come and ask me. I will assign some of them to you. I have 3 survival stories. I have one of a raped child. A child has been raped that I have not told that story. I have a one that a pastor raped. I have not told that story. I have another one that his sister was killed. The person has sent me voice notes of what happened. I have not listened to it. First and foremost, you must build credibility. Survivors must know that if they come to you as a journalist, you will not ask them as though they were the one on trial. These stories, these women were sent to me to speak to them because what I do is gender advocacy. And for me to be able to do a story, I must treat the story right. I will need to go to that community to interview the pastor. I will need to do investigation because I'm putting that back of my mind that if I do this story, they're going to victim blame this lady. So I need to do that story to be watertight. For every story I want to touch that has to do with gender-based violence, that story must be watertight. and I have 3 story pending that I have not touched. There are survivors. Sometimes it's how we approach the issue. Are we approaching the issues that we want to talk about gender-based violence, and we are forcing women that don't want to talk? Or are we even, as a journalist, shown ourselves to be credible and open safe spaces for them? And we are leading the chat on gender advocacy, so that they are the one coming to us to tell us their story. Those women will not back out. Are we building authentic relationships with them? I did a story on surrogacy. When I started to do that story, I went to check women that have been talking about surrogacy. There are women there on social media that are talking about their experience, that people are shutting them up. I went to research them. There are any women talking about somebody raped me on social media that nobody is speaking. People are even calling them false accusers and liars. There are women that want to talk. When I brought out the survivor for surrogate, at first she was reluctant to talk. She told me her experience, but she told me she doesn't want me to use her name and face. I kept on. I didn't force her to talk or anything. I just kept on checking on her. As the situation was progressing, she was one that came to tell me that, in fact, not only do I want to use my name, I want to do a documentary. I did not ask her for a documentary. She did a documentary on surrogacy. She shared her experiences with her home and her face without me having. I just made sure that I put myself out there. And when she was ready to speak, I did, because it's from the place of empathy. She was even telling me, so you're a journalist. You've just been listening quietly and with empathetic to me. I did not know because you're a journalist. I'm like, no, I'm first and foremost a gender advocate. I really just want to know about your experience. Because if I write the story and the woman back out, I will not be stressed, because I know what survivors face. I know I don't even have the power to protect them from stigmatization. I made the lady understand that it's important for you to speak, but I can't protect you from stigmatization. No matter how good a story is, somebody will find a way to blame the victim. Baba Ijesha, they did a video of him talking about brutalizing a young child. People were still saying they set him up. Even with video evidence, that was what people were saying. So if that child backs out, you should even be the one to say yes. We should not even be in a hurry to do gender studies. Our story should focus on the perpetrators. Where are the perpetrators? Just go Google. You will see abstract images showing the face of perpetrators. Even when the Lagos story comments say that they've sent a man to jail for rape or something, his name is there, his picture will not be there. Where are the pictures of them? These are the stories we need to be telling. We need to first create a safe media environment for survivors to come speak out. Why is the face of a survivor there and not the face of a perpetrator? Why will you say this man is a sex offender? You will give us his name, but you not give us his picture. Why are you hiding it? If a man is a murderer and you don't tell me his picture, but you tell me a murderer is on the loose, how am I supposed to protect myself? I might as well be in the same room with the murderer and I will not know. Because people told me there's a murderer, but did not tell me the picture and face. So what is the essence of the information you're giving us? What is the essence of the information? If you tell us that this survivor has been raped, that she came out to say she has been raped, what good does it do for her? First and foremost. We need to move on from the fact that rape is happening. We all know rape is happening, but we never admit it. Neither will the rapist ever admit it. We know now, a lot of women have told us they're raping them. A lot of women have told us they're killing them. The question is, what's next? How does the law protect them? The law has refused to do a femicide law. They said homicide is homicide. Do they not understand that there's a difference between when a gender is killing you and when another gender is killing you? And when it's a higher rate? Those are the reports we need to do. We really need to start doing reports on why are the faces of perpetrators not released. We need to start doing reports on why will a child come to the media and tell you that she has been raped, and you put that child on the stand, and then the perpetrator still go free. Your child is dead, and perpetrator are free, and this girl spoke to the media. That is the questions we should be asking. That's the questions we media should be asking. It's not enough for survivors to come and tell us. All the survivors has been telling us, what have we done? How are we creating a safe space for them? They're not doing survival story favors by telling their stories. We should first and foremost be concerned about them. Sometimes you will tell a story, you talk to a survivor, you tell a story about how someone powerful has raped you. They will call you. Pastors will call you to tell you stop it. Your family member will tell you and say leave it to God. Or they will threaten you and tell you to recount it in the media and say it's false accusation. If not, they will kill your family. And then the person will recount it, and then the whole world will bully her and say women are false liars. Have we done investigation on why do women withdraw their accusation? These are reports we need to be doing. These are reports that is grounded in reality. Why do women go back? What are the societal pressures? So if we are finding issues with survival speaking. That is a story in itself. How do we then media create enabling environments for them? There are issues. Please just speak to GBV. In fact, pick my brain. There are problems. Why will a woman tell you that she has been raped, a child has been raped, and then they will go to the police station, and the police station will say the parents should pay 500,000, the perpetrator should pay 500,000 naira to the victim or the parent, and they will go to hospital. These are stories that I know of. I did not hear it. I know it. They will set them free. The perpetrator will pay 500,000 naira and they will go free. Those are the ones we should be. That's where our story should first start from. How do we want to hold perpetrators accountable? When we begin to want to hold our competitors accountable, we begin to speak to lawmakers, we begin to speak to justice systems, we speak to police and tell them, give us the faces. We begin to say we want to do investigations that will make us go to a community to put spotlight the face of the perpetrators. It's not for the victims to just keep being victims and just keep talking about how they are victims. The essence of gender-based violence is to end gender-based violence. And for you to end it, you must stop perpetrators from it. You must make perpetrators cease from it, either through social shame, through legal policies, through justice, through accountability system, through policy, everything all work together. And yes, there's a need for data. And so it shows that we have work to do. It shows that we need to start thinking of how do we aggregate our data? How do we get our data? So if you don't have data for your story, you can report it that you don't have data for your story, but that we must make sure that you can send surveys out. There's DHS that they are reporting on gender-based violence. They have done the data work. We can begin to even spotlight stories of how there are not enough data. All of this funding that everybody is looking for, and they are just thinking of ideating. They all tell them what the problem is, and let them just form a proposal to them and get all these grant people to fund them. We journalists are having issues with data on so and so. What if the organization, so we can work with NGOs for this, work with policymakers for this. What if these NGOs give us the resources in order to do a data dashboard for this problem so that we begin to account for it? Because we know that there's a lack of. That is even a report on itself. We can report things around things that makes things happen. Nigeria Feminist Media is currently doing a fellowship on femicide. And what we are reporting on is the different angles of femicide from 4 countries. How does submission lead to femicide? How does religion lead to femicide? How does lack of policy lead to femicide? How does cultural silence lead to femicide? One story, one issue. You can examine it from 16 different angles and more in order for us to get to the end purpose. I hope I have answered the question. Yes, I know there's a challenge in getting survivors to speak, but we need to recalibrate our perspective. Let it be on how you want to get perpetrators and give the survivors back out on us. Let us understand. In fact, when we are doing a gender story, let's put at the back of our mind that they can back on us. It is their right, because we currently do not have the power to protect them for the stigmatization they will definitely face. Thank you. But for women voices, you can always get experts, and you can ask me for experts.
Your DM right away. All right, okay. So let me open the floor to one other person. If you want to ask a question, just signify with any emoji, and I'm going to make that pass to you. So as we do that, I wanted to showcase this sheet that we're able to clean up. I mean, one of the things that we did earlier this year in data fight was we wanted to understand, okay, everybody cleans the budget, everybody try to make sense out of it. The number of this is going to this, the number of that is going to that, right? And for some reasons, we just said, okay, is it possible for us to filter all MDAs and see every of those projects that are really directed towards women empowerment, not basically women empowerment, but every women-related issues. That is every line items under every MDA that specifically addresses women issues. So by women issues, I'm saying you will see things like empowerment, right? So I mean, and we ran it through a keyword search. We ran it through, we were able to use some codes to run this because I mean, it's over 2,000 pages. So, and try to clean it over to say, okay, we can bring out each of these either in the Ministry of Agri, either in the presidency, either. And the big picture for us was to say, can we, as much as every MDA will say, oh, we are doing, we have a capital project for a capital expenditure of 1 billion. How many of those 1 billion really are targeted to women? Right? This not to say that every MD has the right to split it into half, or every MDA should, or some of those projects which are specifically not for women would not also take care of women. But we just wanted to understand this. In total, we were able to find about over 1,000 projects in more than at least around 38 MDAs, right? I think the MDAs with the largest of amounts, if you check that, let me see if I have that worked out here. It's always agri, right? And we had art and culture, but then you want to do a bigger perspective to see, oh, okay, I've not filtered this. Let me just filter this a little bit. I'm not teaching. If you want to know how to do all of what I've done, go and watch our videos. We have done classes on it before. I mean, and this is data that we're just, I mean, it was all sitting somewhere by the time we were forming all of this, and we just said, oh, maybe we can give it out to people that have bigger ideas. I mean, and just maybe see if we can work on a partnership with providing the store. Like I was showing you. So you will see Ministry of Agri, Ministry of Women Affairs, obviously, Ministry of Labor and Employment, and Education. I mean, directly speaking to, so some of the keywords that we were able to use were women, girls, girl child, female. I think those were the 5 keywords we use: women, girls, girl child, female. Yeah, I think those were the 4 or 5 keywords that we used. It's been a while that we've done it. So, and you want to probably ask questions like, fine if we don't have direct provisions into some of all these budgets that speaks to women, right? What is the implementation strategy of it? Can we basically, the big picture is, can we always track it to know that you actually did that project, right? Because if you see from our big sheet here, you will see that a lot of those projects are empowerment related projects, right? And it's really skeptical when you see the word empowerment used in budgets, because for obvious reason, empowerment cannot be tracked, right? So someone says you want to empower, I mean, take this for instance, empowerment of women and youth in so in Imo State, right? So it is how do this particular MD define the word empowerment? Is it just buying of books or buying of textbooks or sharing of material, right? And is empowerment really how women in that community defines empowerment, right? So can we track every of these projects, right? Can we also track every of these projects in respect to needs, right? That created some of the subgroups that we are having here. Things like seeing that some of those projects that don't have even specified name, some of them are Greek related. A lot of them are Greek related projects, right? Some of them it is provision of skills, right? And some of them it is things like providing or budgeting for technical equipment, things like sewing machine. They want to give them sewing machine, they want to buy grinding machines and all those kind of things. You see them there. And some of them are just reports. But then each of all these are issues that we can bring to the fore. Issues that we can bring to the fore are like saying, as much as reports are there, do they understand? Let me show you, for instance. I don't have reports here. Okay. So as much as there are reports, right? Do people understand? Are those reports even done in the first place, right? I had a problem with the budget for the Ministry of Women Affairs. Why? Because a lot of them were reports. I don't have a problem with reports. Do a lot of reports that help us understand how we can uh, advocate for that space. But beyond that report, it is, are you actually implementing those recommendations? Right. So if you spend more of your money building the data, are you also going to, by next year, spend more money to implement those findings that you have got, which are questions that we can start asking, right? It is how, if you supply fertilizers, right? Is fertilizers really the basic need for every of the women in that particular community? Not to essentially say that they don't need it, but how do you and like our speaker has said, because it is a women-driven project, right? It is almost very easy for people implementing it to take it so nonchalantly, right? Okay, let's even now say, and let's dive it back to say, okay, these are well meaningful projects, right? Were they even thought through the process of needs? Like, are this what the women in this particular community or in Nigeria needs right now? Right? And were these projects in order, all this ministry crafted in such a way that if all of this money are released, at least it will relieve the burden of women in Nigeria or in that particular community. These are ways that we can understand some of this data. So I'm saying that if I give this data to people like most of the things everybody likes to write are a total of 1 point something billion, which is the 3 points. This is about 322 billion was given to where projects under something. It's very easy to write some of those things, but the thing is, how do we take it a step further to understanding why do this MD make more budgets than this other MD? Okay, beyond budgets, can we check for implementation, right? Can we also check for needs assessment? Can we do a needs assessment to say, okay, this project, if the whole money is given, right, it's going to solve this particular need, right? Why do these states, and we were able to even do, oh, we're able to do filtering by states, right? To say, okay, why do these states have the highest compared to the lowest? Which state face more women-related issue or women-related challenges more? Should we use that to give to apportion money or apportion allocation such that it helps reduce or relieves that, right? Okay, women in this particular state face more victimization in the agri sector than in the workplace sector. Is the budget really helping to take care of that victimization such that it relieves that number, right? Or it is just still focusing on the work sector, right? So I'm saying these are like questions that can help inform how we address. And I don't know if I'm saying something. I hope I'm not saying something out of space, out of place right now. So that Symbiont is my editor on uh, gender related ideas, right? But these are those technical issues that we can see that, okay, beyond having all of these numbers, right? If you can, what we're saying is that if you can think of a big story idea that this kind of data can help you with, right? And beyond, hey, Shokoto women, but no, that's you don't need to, right? If you can think of a very big idea, we are open to giving you the spreadsheet of this data, right? And seeing how we can probably help collaborate and build something reformed that can help. One of the things that we are featuring is seeing that this can also be a continuous thing. If we have this database, we can probably do it for 2026, we can probably do it for previous year, and just have a dashboard that shows these are gender-related projects from the annual budget, and can we always have people interact with it, right? And fish out good stories that help address women-related issues from the allocation or fiscal allocation perspective. It looks like I've talked too much, but let me have your questions and let me have your contributions to what you think. Anybody can go, including Symbians. You can go and anyone. That opens the floor, obviously, to questions. That opens the floor to conversations before we call it a day. And let us know that all of these videos and everything is going to be available on our YouTube channel. You can always follow us on that. Hopefully that is available for the weekend or unfailingly by Monday it is. So you can always check and follow. And I'm saying this out loud if you want to. You can always shoot me a mail. Maybe I drop my mail in the chat box. And let me know what story idea do you think you can work with such that we can always release this data to you. And if you want to have that conversation right now, please, before I call it a day.
Yes, I
You
think
know,
from our end, NFM will reach out to you, or our team will reach out to you so that we can look at this properly and give a more robust feedback on what we can do. But I think this is a very impressive data, and it's a good thing that we are reviewing it.
thank you very much. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Any other person? Any other question? Any other person? Any other question? So we thought well today. That's the assumption. Okay. So I'm going to stop presenting now. Thank you all for joining. Right? It's really been a very, very engaging time. For us, this is how we resource. We always say we resource the whole um, uh, ecosystem for us. How we try to help everybody understand how to use data, how to work with it, how to understand issues. Right? Over time, in several months, we've treated several issues: accountability, AI, climate. We've done a lot of climate training, budgets. Even using things like GIS. I think last month we did something on audits, right? So there's a big plan, and hopefully that you stay close up to every of the things that we do so that you can understand the big plan. But please do well to always follow us. I'm an open person, so I'm an open book. You can always find me anywhere and send me a message. We're looking forward to working with you in any way we can. And if there's going to be a next time, because I know a lot of us will be spending the holidays busy. If there's going to be a next time next month, you will hear about that. But we look forward to working and engaging with you. Please feel free to always reach us out if you have any question. We're building our data file academy database such that every of these slides are also available. So permit us, for sometimes you've always asked and requested for slides and you don't get them. We're building a database where we can always always upload all of these slides so that you don't necessarily have to send it to your mail. You just go there, download it for yourselves and watch the video attached to it. So thank you once again, and we hope that we have done a good work today. So thank you, and